I've been chasing after a spoiled rich guy for 3 years. The phrase I've said most often is, "I want to become family with you." He boasts to his friends about how domesticated I am, despises my lack of self-respect, and mocks how I'm like an obedient dog in front of him. I never pay attention to any of it. Because he has a mother. His mother looks exactly like my deceased mom. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Before my marriage to Lewis Dunsford, two major incidents shook the Dunsford family. First, Mrs. Dunsford demanded a divorce from Mr. Dunsford. Lewis's philandering ways were a trait inherited from his father, Samuel Dunsford. Lewis's father, Mr. Dunsford's mistress, barely 20 and in the bloom of youth, had the audacity to confront Mrs. Dunsford directly. Mrs. Dunsford, known for her fiery temper, exploded. After slapping the young mistress, she stormed into the Dunsford Group offices, demanding a divorce. This family scandal quickly became public knowledge. Second, Lewis's kept woman ran away. The girl, Molly Linwood, was a picture of innocence with a rebellious glint in her eye, reminiscent of a delicate lily of the valley. Upon learning of my impending marriage to Lewis, she was heartbroken and fled to S-City. Lewis was quite fond of Molly and decided to pursue her first. Before departing, he irritably instructed me to reason with his parents, who were now at each other's throats. They're not getting any younger. Doesn't my mother realize how embarrassing this is? Lewis frowned, tugging at his tie. Besides, it's perfectly normal for a man to have a bit of fun. My father assured me he wouldn't have any children outside the marriage. Isn't that enough? I remained silent, quietly packing his suitcase. Suddenly, Lewis embraced me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. His tone softened. "Eileen, you're always so good, so understanding. You're different from the others." I paused. His breath, heavy with the scent of cologne, was almost overpowering. His lips brushed my ear, his words warm and sticky. "I promise you, we'll marry as soon as I return. The position of my wife will always be yours, and I'll give you anything you desire." I grasped his hand, my voice taking on a hint of eagerness. "All right, I want to become family with you." I had told him countless lies in the past. Only this one was true. After Lewis left, I made my way to a familiar villa. It was the current residence of Mrs. Dunsford, Bryn Perry. Rather than calling her Mrs. Dunsford, I preferred to think of her as Ms. Bryn. Ms. Bryn was beautiful, with graceful features that exuded elegance. The traces of time on her face couldn't hide her past radiance. Years ago, Mr. Dunsford had fallen in love with her at first sight because of her stunning face, and insisted on marrying her. But her temperament didn't match her appearance. She was like a powder keg ready to explode at any moment. People in their social circle described Ms. Bryn as harsh, overbearing, bad-tempered, vain, and self-centered. To be fair, none of these descriptions were wrong. But I didn't care. When Ms. Bryn opened the door for me, she was sunbathing. The sunlight in the back garden was bright, and she gave me a lazy glance. She didn't look haggard, which made me feel relieved. I put down the desserts I had queued to buy for her and asked with concern, "Mom, are you all right? Is the divorce going smoothly? Do you need any help? What help could you possibly offer? Children shouldn't meddle in adult affairs." Ms. Bryn said irritably, "That old codger, I'll sort him out." I didn't care about the old codger Mr. Dunsford. I only cared about Ms. Bryn. Winter was coming, and Ms. Bryn was prone to feeling cold, often having icy limbs. "I'll stay here to take care of you for the next few days, Mom," I said obediently. "I'll cook for you." "You've lost weight recently." "I'm on a diet, what do you know?" Ms. Bryn widened her eyes, her slender finger tapping my forehead in exasperation. "You're always running over here. You're about to get married, and your fiancé is out there having fun. Aren't you worried?" It was a gentle tap, not painful at all. Instead, it felt warm, making me want to lean into her embrace and sleep carelessly. I looked at her with curved eyes, feeling happy. What did I care if Lewis Dunsford had eloped with someone? It would be better if he stayed far away and didn't disturb my time with Mum every day. I didn't care about him, it wouldn't matter to me if he died out there. But Louis was Ms. Bryn's own son. Although their mother-son relationship was distant, they were still blood relatives. This fact often made me gnash my teeth with jealousy. I was about to say, as usual, Louis isn't a bad person, he's just a bit of a playboy, when Ms. Bryn let out a soft sigh. Eileen, she said, I'm leaving. My expression suddenly froze. Samuel and I have been out of love for a long time. I've wanted a divorce for years, but he wouldn't allow it, fearing it would affect the company, she said. Now that this has blown up, I can finally leave. Ms. Bryn's expression was unprecedentedly relaxed. There's a foreigner pursuing me, and I quite like him. We've arranged to travel abroad together. Who knows, I might come back married again. My lips moved slightly, wanting to ask something. But in the end, I couldn't ask anything. I wasn't her biological daughter, I had no standing. But I felt relieved. Ms. Bryn's happiness was more important to me than anything else. Now she had gained the freedom she had always dreamed of. I would offer her my most sincere blessings. I said seriously, whoever Mum thinks is good, is good. Ms. Bryn looked at me quietly. The fine lines at the corners of her eyes were like twining vines. When she smiled slightly, it was as if 1,000 trees bloomed. Do you think I'm too old to see through you? She said. Eileen Green, are you silly? Even if I leave, I can still be your mom. Ms. Bryn paused slightly, her tone unusually gentle. She said, baby, come with Mum. I first met Louis Dunsford at a charity gala. I was there as a student volunteer representative, while he arrived in a flashy sports car, sporting a streak of silver-dyed hair, looking handsome and rebellious. I approached him, and from that moment on, I pursued him relentlessly. Everyone assumed I had fallen for him at first sight, or that I was after the power and wealth behind him. But that wasn't the case. That day, Louis was there on behalf of his mother. Ms. Bryn's photo was displayed prominently in the venue. I stared at her in disbelief, confusion, and longing. Ms. Bryn bore a striking resemblance to my birth mother. Only their demeanors were completely different. In my memories, my mom was gentle and elegant, while Ms. Bryn was bold and vivacious. My mom spoke softly, while Ms. Bryn was assertive. My mom always dressed simply, while Ms. Bryn was luxurious and regal. But like my mom, Ms. Bryn had no siblings. I secretly compared my DNA with Ms. Bryn's and Louis's, only to find we had no genetic relationship. But could there really be people who look identical yet have no connection? I didn't know. If my mom hadn't been forever frozen at 30, she would probably be like Ms. Bryn now. If my mom hadn't lived in those circumstances, could she have been as carefree and expressive as Ms. Bryn? I didn't know that either. Perhaps souls in this world are naturally split in two. I believed I had found the other half of my mom's soul. I was just a poor student. No matter how excellent my grades or how bright my future, I had no roots in a city. All my life, the only weapon I had was myself. I couldn't get close to Ms. Bryn. But that was all right, I could get close to Louis. He was a playboy, flirtatious, and obsessed with beauty. And as it happened, I had an attractive face, superb acting skills, and a decent mind. I showered him with care and unwavering devotion, even when he played around. After graduation, I quickly built a team using my connections and borrowed resources. Now, With Light Limited is a rising star in the business world, worthy of partnering with the Dunsford Group. So I was no longer just his casual companion. I had reached a position and level where he had to take me seriously. Louis and I got engaged. That day, I finally got what I wanted. I called Ms. Bryn Mum for the first time. At first, Ms. Bryn was wary. Why are you trying to get on my good side? Even if you two get married, I won't live with you. Later, her attitude softened, and she advised me to break up, albeit reluctantly. What do you see in Louis? A girl like you could be with anyone, why settle for this jerk? Now, she says to me, baby, come with Mum. As soon as the visa came through, Ms. Bryn and I boarded the first flight out of the country. Ms. Bryn must have had some leverage over Mr. Dunsford, as he agreed to her terms rather quickly. She had already moved all her belongings out, showing remarkable efficiency. Yesterday, a blogger captured a video of Louis and Molly dancing romantically on the beach, sharing a sweet kiss. His latest scandal hit the trending topics again. Today, Louis must have seen it. He managed to tear himself away from his love nest long enough to send me a message of reassurance. Eileen, the wedding will proceed as planned. I'll make it back in time. I didn't reply. These past few days, I've been busy helping Ms. Bryn divide the assets. It was only then that I realized I still had his contact in my WhatsApp. Confirming that Ms. Bryn held no lingering affection for her husband and son. I blocked Louis just before boarding the plane. I also blocked all his friends for good measure. What wedding? With Ms. Bryn gone, I wouldn't be attending anyway. The flight was turbulent, but my mood remained calm and content. As long as I was by Ms. Bryn's side, I'd go anywhere willingly. As soon as we disembarked, someone came to greet us. A handsome man with blonde hair and blue eyes held up a large sign. His eyes lit up as he rushed over to us. He took our luggage, flashing a brilliant white smile as he spoke in fluent, albeit slightly exaggerated, English. My darling Bryn, I've been counting the days until your arrival. Ms. Bryn removed her sunglasses, gracefully allowing him to kiss her cheek. Before coming, I had already investigated this father and son duo. Wesley Clark's previous wife passed away from illness 13 years ago. He also has a son named Theo Clark. 5 years ago, Wesley fell in love with Ms. Bryn at first sight. Being a gentleman, upon learning that Ms. Bryn was married, he never crossed any boundaries. He would occasionally send messages and gifts. He remained devoted, waiting for Ms. Bryn all these 5 years. I could see that Ms. Bryn was very fond of him, her eyes full of joy. Just like how she used to love Samuel Dunsford. That's just how Ms. Bryn is. When she loves, she gives her all, burning with passion. Even at her age, even after being hurt by love, she bravely throws herself into the next relationship. Is this the precious Eileen you told me about? Wesley exclaimed, turning his attention to me. She's absolutely adorable. 1,000 times cuter than Theo. Bryn, do you think we could have a little doll like her? Ms. Bryn glared at him and gave him a sharp pinch. Theo's right here, what nonsense are you spouting? Behind Wesley stood a young man with strikingly handsome features who nodded politely to Ms. Bryn. Ma'am, it's been a while. Then, he extended his hand to me. Miss Eileen, pleased to meet you. He was of mixed heritage, with defined features but inheriting his mother's refined looks. His perfectly shaped blue eyes resembled top-quality topaz. I paused for a few seconds. If my judgment was correct, Ms. Bryn would marry Wesley. Theo would become her new son. Without Louis connecting us, Ms. Bryn and I would be nothing more than familiar strangers. Even if she temporarily accepted me by her side, things could change in the future. I wanted to stay by Ms. Bryn's side legitimately, to call her mum for the rest of my life. I couldn't accept any changes. I needed a real, legally binding familial relationship. That couldn't be severed no matter what happened in the future. I needed to marry Theo. What kind of girl does Theo like? How should I win his affection? These thoughts flashed through my mind in an instant. I smiled at Theo and reached out my hand. Hello, Mr. Clark. You can call me Eileen. He stared at me quietly for a few seconds. Suddenly, he smiled, like ice melting. Somewhat awkwardly, he patted my head and said, Eileen, you're Ms. Bryn's daughter. You should call me brother. I froze, feeling a bit confused. Perhaps it was because the eyes of the person before me were clear and gentle, without any hint of obscurity or ambiguity. His gaze was open and kind, friendly yet appropriately distanced. Unlike Louis, whose every glance carried a possessive desire. I frowned, not believing there could be a man willing to be just a brother to a pretty girl. But since he said so, I went along with it. Brother. His preference for this form of address made no difference to me. Guessing others' preferences and gaining their favor had long since become second nature to me. I've been enjoying Ms. Bryn's company for over 2 weeks now. Wesley and Theo have been diligently serving as our tour guides, taking care of our bags, paying the bills, and planning our itinerary and restaurant reservations each day. Theo is quite skilled at photography. He carries around that expensive camera lens worth tens of thousands of pounds. directing Ms. Bryn and me on how to pose. His photo editing skills are truly top-notch, enhancing every strand of hair in the sunlight to look incredibly aesthetic. His ability to produce photos rivals that of the best fan photographers for top celebrities. While Wesley may not be adept at taking photos, he excels at providing emotional value. He stands beside Theo's camera, exclaiming in admiration, "Oh God! Bryn, you're truly God's masterpiece. You two are what we'd call nature's favorites. So beautiful. I can hardly breathe." Though his words may seem exaggerated, the stars shining in his eyes make him appear utterly sincere. I'm certain Miss Bryn is quite fond of Wesley, as she always smiles happily at such moments. There's a youthful vibrancy in her eyes and brows that I've never seen back home. In fact, I find this bearded man, who hums while cooking steaks for us in the kitchen wearing an apron, more dependable than Samuel Dunsford. At least Wesley remembers that Miss Bryn never eats salad dressing, unlike Samuel, who always orders a vegetable salad for her whenever they dine out, claiming it's better to eat light at her age. Every early morning and late night, we'd bump into each other at the study door, laptops in hand. We'd exchange knowing smiles. The first time we met like this, Wesley sheepishly scratched his head and said, "LOL, the feeling of skiving off work for a holiday is indeed addictive. But I'm afraid my employees might not feel the same way." I sincerely replied, "I understand completely. My business partner is probably thinking of coming here to hunt me down." By the seventh encounter, we were already giving each other high fives for encouragement. I found it a bit childish, but Wesley loved it. He said he learned it from the anime Theo likes, calling it a sign of camaraderie. Theo, who was bringing us orange juice and coffee, just sighed and said, "That was an anime I liked when I was 5. The companies Wesley and I run are in the same field. I often seek his advice on management experience, and occasionally, Wesley discusses with me specific strategies for developing the domestic market." During a video conference, Nina remarked, "I initially thought you were just being lazy and dumping all the work on me. But now I feel like you've gone for advanced studies." As my business partner, she has always been ambitious and eager for progress, not returning home for Christmas for 2 years in a row, though she explained that she wasn't important in that household, and had no one worth visiting or caring about. But I'm different. My career is important to me, but not as much as my mom. Only Nina knows this. So even though I spend a lot of time with mom, as long as I handle my work well every night, she doesn't find it strange that I'm not present at the office. She says, "Some people have love on the brain, you have mom on the brain." I just smile without saying anything. She also mentioned Lewis. "Your runaway bride act is big news. Everyone's gossiping that you left in a huff because of that homewrecker Molly. And they're all laughing at Lewis. Lewis always loved using me as a tool to show off. In others' eyes, I'm beautiful, gentle, capable at work, have high social status, yet very family-oriented. In Lewis's eyes, I return home every day to greet Ms. Bryn, personally care for her when she's ill, fulfilling his filial duties without complaint. Not only that, I can assist him in his career, never embarrass him in front of others, and don't mind his philandering. In his view, I'm the perfect wife by old-fashioned standards. But occasionally, he would develop some obscure emotions, when my career progressed too quickly, making him feel incompetent in comparison. Once when he was drunk, he laughed at me in front of others, saying that this with-light director who commands respect outside is as obedient as his dog at home. I heard it all while standing outside, and entered with an unchanged expression to take him home amidst the awkward gazes of others. Actually, I didn't really care about his attitude. We were engaged at the time, considered a community of interests. His belittling me would only make others laugh at him. It was Ms. Bryn who later found out about this incident and slapped Lewis. She advised me to cancel the engagement, her eyes showing genuine concern. She didn't know that I was only coveting the warmth of her palm. My image is that of the most popular lady of the house in this circle, very suitable to be married into a family. The young masters of other families all envied how Lewis could find such a wife. Now that I've run away from the wedding, it's only natural for him to be laughed at. Nina continued, "Lewis and Molly have fallen out. That girl attempted suicide and ended up in hospital. But he didn't even bother to check on her. I frowned slightly. No fatalities, I hope? No, who would really have the resolve to die for a man? She slit her wrists, but the wounds weren't deep. But Lewis is truly a scumbag. Just the day before, he was caught kissing her on camera, trending on Twitter. Yet he hasn't visited her in the hospital even once. I wasn't surprised. Well, after such a scare, she probably won't play with her life again. Nina nodded in agreement. Lewis is busy looking for you. He's practically turned half the city upside down. Last time he came to Withlight, I was startled when I saw him. Phew, he used to at least have a decent face. Now he looks like a haggard 40-year-old man. Men's prime really is short-lived. I seriously replied, if he looked like Ms. Bryn, he definitely wouldn't turn ugly. Nina chuckled. He was asking me like a madman where you went and why you deleted him. I couldn't be bothered with him, so I had security put him on the blacklist. He's not allowed into Withlight anymore. And that was the end of that matter. Neither I nor Nina cared much about Lewis. By the way, is that blue-eyed handsome guy in your WhatsApp photo your future stepfather's son? Nina asked again, what are you planning? To pursue him? She had once asked me why I chose this method to get close to Ms. Bryn. In her view, it wasn't much different from sacrificing myself. I didn't give her an answer, just smiled. The reason we've been able to work together for so long is that we don't meddle in each other's personal lives. She won't comment on my private affairs. I didn't say anything, just lowered my eyes slightly. Of course, that was my original intention. I always felt that there was still a bridge missing between Ms. Bryn and me that could bind us together. The previous bridge was Lewis. The current bridge is Theo. But facing Theo, after so many days, I've become a bit confused. When I approached Lewis, I hardly needed to act much before he firmly believed that I liked him. Back then, he would look down at me, his gaze frivolous and contemptuous, with a faint, confident smile always playing on his lips. I knew what he was thinking. He was thinking that a gold digger like me, coveting his family background, was clinging to him so eagerly. How boring. But he would also think, a pretty university student offering herself up, why not have a taste? I grasped this psychology perfectly. Because in my understanding, 99% of men are like this. But Theo seems to be that 1%. He would queue for a long time to buy popular snacks at tourist spots for me, then quietly help me dispose of the rubbish after I finished eating. He would help cut our steaks at the restaurant along with Wesley, making sure each piece was beautifully shaped because we wanted to take photos. He would prepare breakfast for me every morning, remembering what I liked to eat after just a glance. But he treats Wesley and Ms. Bryn the same way. He says we are his family. When we walk side by side on the street, he always maintains a distance from me that is neither too far nor too close. Familiar yet not intimate. Suddenly, it started pouring. He tilted the umbrella towards my side, willing to let half of his shoulder get soaked. I knocked on his door wearing thin clothes, asking why the shower in my room was broken. The first thing he did was turn back to get a new coat for me to wear. Then he checked the shower in another guest room. After confirming it was working, he let me use it first, while he took a toolbox and called the maid to help fix mine. I don't understand. Shouldn't this be the moment when he lets me shower in his room, creating the right atmosphere for things to naturally progress? But Theo wouldn't do that. So when he brought breakfast to my door another morning, I casually said, "Thanks, brother." It was the coffee bun I had mentioned wanting to eat the night before. The word brother slipped out, and I froze. Habit is truly a terrifying thing. It allows me to so easily accept a stranger's kindness, to naturally call someone with no blood relation to me brother. Theo smiled though, gently patting my head. No need to be so polite between family members. Is that so? We are family? I can become family without having to give anything in return? Such confusion was almost imprinted on my face. But I seemed to waver. So much so that I couldn't give Nina an answer at that moment. Our holiday was coming to an end, and Ms. Bryn and I were preparing to return home. Her relationship with Wesley had blossomed quickly, but they both tacitly avoided mentioning marriage. After all, with such a great distance between them, Ms. Bryn had no intention of emigrating, and Wesley and Theo had their own careers abroad. Their future would inevitably be in different countries. However, before our departure, Wesley mysteriously invited us to join a camping trip. The sky in the countryside was clear, and the stars shone brightly. As we raised our glasses under the moonlight, Wesley suddenly knelt down and proposed to Ms. Bryn. Beneath the ring was a document resembling a job transfer notice. He had applied for the position of director at an overseas branch, and would be responsible for the British market in the future. Wesley had been planning this for a very long time. It wasn't a lateral move, but rather a demotion. And it was a voluntary one at that. He flashed a bright smile, asking Ms. Bryn with slightly reddened eyes, "Bryn, is it easy to get a green card in your country? Theo and I don't want to be illegal immigrants." Ms. Bryn didn't say a word, but chose to lean down and embrace him. The tall man's eyes lit up, and he immediately lifted her and spun her around. He cheered, as if wanting to share his joy with heaven and earth. "I did it." I asked Theo, "Did you know about this all along?" "Yes," Theo smiled at me, speaking nonchalantly. "I'm actually a bit ahead of Wesley. I've already secured an offer." When we took a group photo, we set up the camera, and Wesley ruffled my hair, grinning foolishly at Theo. "Theo, I'm going to have a daughter too." Both he and Theo liked to pat my head. The gesture was gentle and affectionate, their eyes filled with pure fondness. It was a love for family, devoid of any desire. Ms. Bryn held me close, and as the camera clicked, I raised the corners of my mouth in a smile. But when I heard them discussing getting married, my smile gradually faded. They were the real family. Lost in thought, I wondered if I wanted Ms. Bryn to become my mother. I would have to. My thoughts were jumbled, and before I could find an answer, Theo suddenly handed me a skewer of grilled pineapple. In the firelight, he said gently, "When we go back, you'll have to be our tour guide, Eileen." Ms. Bryn raised an eyebrow, "Then you'll have to pay my baby for her services." Wesley made the final decision. "Of course! We know Eileen's account number, her brother will transfer money to her every month." Theo skillfully grilled some honey-glazed chicken wings for me. "I would do that even if you didn't say so. All my monthly salary is yours, Bryn." Wesley turned to Ms. Bryn and said sheepishly, "I heard it's a tradition in your country." Ms. Bryn couldn't help but laugh. "I don't need that bit of money." As they joked and bantered, I lowered my eyes and slowly bit into the now cool pineapple. It was sweet, but somehow also a bit tart. As we were leaving, Ms. Bryn asked me, "What are you thinking about?" "You've been in a daze." I held her cool hand. "Nothing, just thinking that the winter here is too cold." "I don't like it." I was thinking about why the winter here was so cold, making Mum's hands chilly. I was thinking about why the winter here wasn't cold enough to freeze this amber-like moment in time. If there really was a temperature that could freeze time, I would willingly sleep forever. After returning, we moved into the new villa Ms. Bryn had purchased. Wesley was busy connecting with new work opportunities, running himself ragged every day. Ms. Bryn couldn't bear to watch and went to help at the company for a salary, of course. Theo, being a designer, could mostly work from home, which left him rather free. Occasionally he would go out, and during these times, I would fulfill my promise to be his guide. I gave him a gift. It was a set of ceramics I had fired myself in my spare time. Theo placed it in the largest glass display cabinet in his room, relegating the trophies he had won in design competitions over the years to a lower shelf. The next day, as we were heading out, he suddenly asked, "Eileen, your birthday is coming up. What would you like?" What did I want? From childhood to adulthood, I had obtained everything I wanted through my own efforts, except for one thing. Only this one thing. I looked at him and said, "I want to become family with you." Bang! The sound of something heavy hitting the ground suddenly rang out. It was someone punching the car door beside us with great force. Louis Dunsford, whom we hadn't seen in days, was standing behind us. Blood dripping from his fist, his face as dark as a thundercloud. His brightly colored sports car stood with its door wide open, the engine still running. Become family with him? He couldn't help but laugh coldly, nodding and repeating this familiar phrase. Good, good. Eileen Green, you've really outdone yourself. Theo frowned slightly and moved to shield me. I calmly looked at Lewis. A city is only so big, especially with Withlight Limited still here. I couldn't leave, and if he was determined to find me, running into each other was inevitable sooner or later. When Ms. Bryn and I left together, I didn't hide my whereabouts, occasionally posting travel photos. Nina's suddenly cold attitude towards him. Lewis wasn't a fool after all. This time had been enough for him to figure out the cause and effect. We were once intimate lovers. But he was frivolous, and I had ulterior motives. Neither of us were good people, with little genuine feeling for each other. He was completely irrelevant to me, especially after Ms. Bryn expressed that she would act as if she never had the son. I no longer had the patience to deal with him. I had no intention of explaining either. Just standing there, still cold and calm as I looked at him. Lewis, however, seemed to have calmed down. Eileen, he said, come back with me, let's have the wedding. I can overlook this incident. His words were so absurd that I couldn't help but chuckle. If it weren't for Ms. Bryn, I wouldn't have given someone like him a second glance. Not even bothering with a reply, I said to Theo, let's go. Eileen Green. Lewis's forehead veins were bulging as he rushed towards me. How could you do this to me? I sent out so many invitations. Do you know what a laughingstock I became when the bride was absent on the wedding day? But I won't hold it against you. As long as you come back to me, I'll pretend nothing happened. His eyes were bloodshot, his emotions running high. But just as he was about to reach me, Theo blocked him. Theo hadn't said anything until now. But at this moment, his azure eyes were ice cold, his tone severe. Shouting at a lady like this, sir, you're being extremely rude. And who are you supposed to be? Her new catch? Lewis spoke without thinking. Do you know how long we've been together? Do you know what she's like with me? Do you know how many times I've slept with her? Before he could finish, Theo's fist connected with his face. Theo, having grown up abroad, was usually gentle and sincere, always a polite gentleman. But he also enjoyed working out, and was much stronger than a pampered rich boy like Lewis. So this was a one-sided beating. I had never seen Theo so angry before. If I hadn't stopped him, I have no doubt he would have beaten Lewis to death. Brother, I shook my head, that's enough. Only then did Theo lower his fist. I looked at Lewis, who took a while to get up after being beaten to the ground, and said expressionlessly, the video of you kissing another woman was trending for 2 days. Just 3 days before our wedding. Marrying someone like you would have made me the laughingstock. But I didn't care back then. As long as I could become Ms. Bryn's daughter. What did it matter if I became a laughingstock? You still care about me, you left because of Molly after all. Lewis's eyes suddenly lit up. Eileen, I've cut all ties with her, I won't ever again. A rake's reform is worth its weight in gold. That's just a lie women tell themselves for comfort. I don't love you, I interrupted his spiel. I don't care about you either. I don't want to marry you, and I don't want to have anything to do with you in the future. It doesn't matter to me how many women you find out there. You don't love me? You don't want to marry me? He stood there stunned, his questioning voice growing louder. Impossible. I don't believe it. How could you change your heart so quickly? Eileen, were you always? He couldn't continue. Subtle, complex flaws, feigned sincerity, occasional glimpses of coldness. Piece by piece, rather than tolerant love, it seemed more like indifference. His body swayed, his face gradually turning pale, as if struck by lightning. He finally realized I had been performing. A dispirited Lewis raised his eyes, dazed. Why? I didn't answer. On our way home, Theo and I didn't speak. As we approached the front door, I heard him sigh very softly. He asked, was that your former fiancé? I nodded, yes. He continued, if you didn't like him, why did you force yourself to be with someone like that? I remained silent. Theo inquired, it's related to your statement I want to become family with you, isn't it? He was indeed very clever and perceptive. He was also very kind to me, treating me completely like his own little sister. But at this moment, my thoughts were incredibly clear. I was analyzing his complex psychological state almost coldly. A bit of pity, a bit of confusion, and whether I could use it to my advantage. To achieve my goal, I could be ruthless. Even if it meant hurting anyone. So I raised my eyes, quickly filling them with tears. I wanted to say I was scared, to ask if he would hurt me like that. To ask if he was willing to protect me. But the next moment, Theo gently embraced me. He patted my head soothingly. Eileen, we're already family. I can always be your brother. Wesley can always be your dad. And of course, Ms. Bryn will always be your mom. Perhaps no one can predict the future, but I promise you. If you ask any of them this question, they'll give you the same answer. This was a familial embrace. Yet it tore the script and lines I had woven to shreds. Tears fell. This time, it wasn't an act. My next encounter with Louis was at the police station. He had reported being assaulted in public. We sat in the interview room. His expression strange, seemingly tinged with mockery. Theo was calm when taken for questioning. He even reassured me not to worry. He had considered the consequences when he struck Louis. And with Louis's injury assessment now complete, showing only minor injuries, the worst outcome would be a fine and detention. The room was left with just Louis and me. Eileen, Louis said, I've been thinking a lot since I got back about why you were with me. I frowned slightly. I finally realized, it was because of my mom, wasn't it? He seemed to find something amusing, his shoulders shaking. Are you really that desperate for love? Did you just fall head over heels the moment you saw my mom's face? My fingertips went rigid. But Louis continued, his tone light. You hit it well. I specifically checked back then, you were an orphan, never adopted. With a clean family background. Turns out it was all lies. You're just some prostitute's kid. She didn't even want you, yet you're still hung up on that slag of a mom. I wonder how Bryn would feel if she knew. You were using her as a substitute for that kind of woman? Would she never want to see you again? A violent ringing filled my ears as Louis prattled on. But, if you apologize and come back to marry me, I can keep all this to myself. Eileen, let's forget about the past. I won't hold your deception against you. As long as you're devoted to me from now on, I promise you. I hate summer. The oppressive heat and humidity. The nauseating smell trapped in the dark house, lingering endlessly. I stare at the wind chime spinning above my head, the one Mum made for me. She said when the wind chime is hanging, it means Mum and Eileen are playing a game. Eileen needs to hide and not let others find her. I count the shoes at the doorway. One pair belongs to Mum. One pair belongs to Dad. An elegant pair of men's leather shoes, belonging to the debt collector. A rough pair of men's sandals, belonging to a man I've never seen before. They squeeze into Mum's tiny room. Greedily sucking up Mum's pain, devouring her flesh and blood. Dad sends off the two satisfied-looking men with a fawning expression, saying, Mr. Jackson, please give me a few more days on my gambling debt. I can send this woman to you if you'd like. I curl up in the cupboard on the balcony, waiting for this game of hide-and-seek to end. Waiting for Mum to gently stroke my hair. Praising me for being such a good girl, for not letting anyone find me again. But that day, the wind chime was torn apart. I was discovered. The muscular man looked down at me, his gaze gradually becoming meaningful. He asked my father, who was bowing and scraping beside him. Is this your daughter? She's as pretty as her mother. Dad froze suddenly, his mouth opening and closing, before finally averting his eyes from me. Yes, she takes after her Mum dash. The door to Mum's room creaked open. She calmly said, she's not. Her feet were shaking, her hair disheveled, her clothes in disarray. But she still looked so gentle. She's not my daughter. Mum didn't look at me. She must be a child from next door. Go home now, dear. The man laughed, his tone loaded with meaning. Little girl, tell me, is she your mom? Mom said, I'm not her mother. But the man seemed to become violent. Did I talk to you? I'm asking this little girl. Why the hell are you butting in? He slapped Mom. Mom fell to the ground. I finally couldn't hold back anymore and ran over crying to help her up. But she pushed my hand away. I'm not her mother. I don't know her. Whose child are you? Go away. Go home right now. Slap. Another blow. The man seemed to have found some sort of amusement. He kicked and beat Mom while yelling at her. I'm asking you. Is she your daughter or not? Is she? She's not. She was so stubborn. She lay on the ground, blood blooming around her like flowers. She's not. The man gritted his teeth. She should consider herself lucky I've taken a liking to her. Tonight, I'll have both mother and daughter serve me. Dad was already a blubbering mess. Mr. Jackson, please stop hitting her. Stop. She is my daughter. I'll show you the household register. He crawled to the living room to search, finally finding a booklet. But Mom suddenly snatched the booklet, pulled out a page, and tore it to pieces. 1, 2, 3 times. Scraps of paper flew everywhere, like falling snow. I said she's not my daughter. She doesn't have a mother like me. She's not my daughter. Mom's voice was nearly hoarse, but her tone remained firm. She knelt in the living room, just as the man was about to grab her ankle. She pulled out a knife from under the sofa. Then she looked at me and smiled. She pressed her thumb and index finger together and shook them. That was Mom ringing the wind chime. She wanted to play hide-and-seek with me again. I obediently stumbled out of the house. A great fire broke out in that place. The flames intertwined, danced, burned, and spread. My mom is the greatest magician in the world. Because she could turn even a dark little room into a palace of light. Later, I was found by a policewoman. She gently stroked my head and quietly asked her colleague. This child says she's the homeowner's daughter. Did you find any registration records? No, her partner replied softly. Many people in this council estate only have paper records, no electronic files. The torn household register we found in the house doesn't have her page. She's probably an abandoned orphan the homeowner took in, wanting to raise her as a daughter. The policewoman sighed. I suppose we'll have to send this child to the orphanage. I later asked, Miss, is there anything in this world that can prove I'm Mom's daughter? A household register, the policewoman smiled. There are many ways to register. You'll understand when you're older. I thought of that page Mom had torn to pieces. I seemed to understand but not quite. Mom made it snow for me. From then on, no one knew that Mabel Green was my mother. There was nothing left to prove I was Mabel Green's daughter. My mom is the greatest magician in the world. She made it snow in my world, leaving a vast expanse of pure white. As an adult, I finally understood. There are many ways to settle down. But how can two people without blood ties become family? Only through marriage. Sometimes I wonder if Mom doesn't want to acknowledge me anymore. When she was around, she always said it would have been better if Eileen had been born into a good family. She said she was a stain on Eileen's life. She played a game of hide-and-seek with me that would never end. The only piece of paper that could prove our connection has turned to ashes. She doesn't want to acknowledge me. She's abandoned me. That's why for all these years, she has never once appeared in my dreams. I can only recall her former self in faded, blurry memories and in Ms. Bryn's every move and gesture. Lewis was right. If Ms. Bryn found out, she would never want to see me again. I can't believe I wanted to use the same trick on Theo. Harsh voices keep ringing in my ears. Sometimes it's she doesn't want you anymore. Sometimes it's she'll never want to see you again. Sometimes it's she's not my daughter. And sometimes it's the tinkling of wind chimes. The world turns upside down before my eyes, shattering. Blurry patches of color rearranging themselves. Lewis's lips move, opening and closing, but I can't hear anything clearly. Until there's a commotion outside. It seems someone has barged in. Slap! Someone gives Lewis a hard slap across the face. You beast! In my memory, Ms. Bryn was always pampered, noble, and elegant. Even when angry, she would never shout. She was harsh and overbearing. But she would never let herself be caught in an awkward situation. Now her clothes are disheveled, a few strands of hair have come loose. And her face is filled with overwhelming anger. Even the police behind her can't hold her back. It's as if she's suddenly pulled me out of the water. The world becomes clear again. But then I become fearful again. Ms. Bryn is here? How much did she hear? How much does she know? Will she never want to see me again? How could I have given birth to such a thing? Another slap flies across, and Ms. Bryn looks like she wants to strangle him. Your words are like sewage, you're rotten to the core just like that old bastard Samuel. No wonder no amount of teaching could ever improve you. Ma'am, please calm down. Don't hit people in the police station. Me, hitting people? Ms. Bryn lets out a cold laugh. Look at what he's done to my daughter. Even if I beat him to death, it wouldn't be enough. Louis is stunned by the slaps, covering his face and howling, "I'm your son." Ms. Bryn's eyes become filled with utter disappointment. Her voice even louder than his. "Louis Dunsford, listen to me. I've taught you how to behave since you were little. I've fed you and clothed you, I've never wronged you. As my son, you don't have to be excellent. You can play around instead of studying, you can even be idle and unproductive every day. But you need to know how to be a decent person. You need to know what respect and equality mean. I don't want to use harsh words on you, but you've indeed learned a lot from Samuel Dunsford. He's morally corrupt, of low character, and doesn't treat others as human beings. And you're not much different. You haven't treated me as your mother. So from now on, I'm no longer your mother. I have my own family now, don't you dare bother me." She stands in front of me, holding my hand. "Baby, let's go." Louis suddenly stands up. "Bryn. Do you know that she?" Ms. Bryn doesn't turn back, I know. She turns to look at me. "Your mother's name is Mabel Green, and she looks very much like me. I've known for a long time. So what?" Ms. Bryn lets out a laugh. "What difference does it make?" Bryn wasn't a fool. She had, of course, investigated the reasons behind Eileen's kindness towards her. At first, she found it amusing. This girl was treating her as a substitute? But she didn't feel offended. Instead, she was curious. Did this woman called Mabel Green really look so much like her? Then she discovered that Eileen would go to a faraway place every year to pay respects to her mother. Once, she secretly followed and saw Eileen sitting in front of a simple mound, not uttering a word for hours. She didn't even speak to Mabel, didn't share her recent experiences. She dared not make a sound, as if afraid of disturbing something. Bryn felt a bit sorry, so she left some flowers for Mabel. She said, "Your daughter is doing well. She got into a top university and has now started her own company, called Withlight Limited." She thought, how could there be a mother in this world? Who doesn't care about how her daughter is doing? Mabel must want to hear about it. Eileen was perfect in every way. Except for her insistence on marrying that git of a son. Bryn thought she'd try to persuade her again when they got back. But later she discovered that Eileen didn't really like Louis either. Eileen remembered what she wanted to eat, what she liked, what she wanted to buy. Even when Bryn felt slightly unwell, Eileen would take it to heart. Bryn finally understood what she wanted. She very much wanted to tell Eileen, "Even if you don't marry Louis, you're still my daughter." But Eileen seemed to have a deep-seated obsession with truly becoming family with her. Bryn finally understood that she had also become a lock keeping Eileen trapped. But she didn't understand where the key was. Later, when Bryn fell ill, neither Samuel nor Louis came to see her. Only Eileen stayed at the hospital to take care of her through the night. When she woke up startled in the middle of the night, she saw Eileen holding her hand, slumped by her bedside, with glistening tears in the corners of her eyes, mumbling in her sleep. She said, "Mom, why don't you come to see me? All these years, why haven't you come to see me in my dreams even once?" That year, she went with Eileen to pay respects to Mabel. It started to rain. Bryn held her only umbrella over Mabel's gravestone. She sighed and said, "Mabel, she misses you so much. She added, "Can you tell me what I should do?" The young woman in the photo smiled gently. A passing police car saw her without an umbrella, looking bedraggled, and gave her a lift. There was a policewoman in the car who, passing by a burned-out house, reminisced about an old case from years ago. She said that little girl wasn't even on the household register, but claimed to be the homeowner's daughter. She must have desperately wanted a mother. She also said the girl must have been traumatized, saying her mother had made it snow for her. But it was clearly a fire. Where did the snow come from? Bryn was stunned. She thought she had found the answer. So on the first day back, she divorced Samuel Dunsford. She said to Eileen, "Baby, come with Mum. I'm not Mabel Green. I'm Bryn Perry. But I want to be your mother." Ms. Bryn held my hand as we walked down the street. Wesley and Theo followed us at a distance. Close enough to protect us but not close enough to hear our conversation. She didn't speak, and I didn't dare to either. After a while, I finally managed to stammer, "Mum." Ms. Bryn stopped in her tracks. She looked at me, and I could only blurt out, "We're almost at Cake Avenue. I'd like to queue up for some coconut macaroons." Coconut macaroons from Cake Avenue were one of Ms. Bryn's favorite treats. Ms. Bryn couldn't help but smile, tapping my forehead lightly. "Eileen, for a student at a top university, you can be quite silly sometimes." I asked foolishly, "What?" "There are many ways to prove I'm your mother. You don't have to marry anyone." She suddenly pinched my cheek and leaned in close. Smile. Click. I swear, this must be the worst photo Ms. Bryn has ever taken. But her eyes were crinkled with laughter, her smile so natural. She casually opened her verified but rarely used Twitter account and posted it. "Bryn Perry, me and my daughter." Ding! Immediately, there were a few retweets. Wesley Clark, my love and her daughter. Theo Clark, hug, spinning. With Light Limited, our boss and her mom. Nina Grant, my best friend and her mom. Even the Dunsford group chimed in. After all, Wesley and I had been sabotaging Samuel Dunsford's projects lately. Every project his team took on was thwarted by us. While Ms. Bryn's team was thriving, seemingly ready to branch out on their own. The official Dunsford group account, probably desperate at this point, had been constantly fawning over Ms. Bryn. Dunsford group, wow. Gorgeous Ms. Bryn and Miss Dunsford group, heavenly duo, drooling. I had just reported Lewis for soliciting prostitutes. He had indeed been frequenting gentlemen's clubs to drown his sorrows after I ran away from our wedding. I wonder if Samuel will be furious when he sees these tweets after bailing Lewis out. But that doesn't matter anymore. Because once Lewis is out, I'll send him right back in. He's caused no small amount of trouble over the years. All of which Samuel had to clean up. But I'm not a forgiving person. His attitude towards me is secondary, he wasn't good to Ms. Bryn. Despite occupying the position of Ms. Bryn's son, he failed to fulfill his responsibilities. I was both jealous and resentful of him, so I carefully collected evidence of all his misdeeds. While it might not be enough to get him shot, it's more than sufficient to send him to prison every now and then. When Ms. Bryn finally breaks away from the Dunsford group to start her own business, I'll submit the evidence of Samuel Dunsford's business crimes as well. Then, we'll let father and son meet in prison, while Wesley and I divide up the remaining resources of the Dunsford group. While these dark thoughts swirled in my mind, my fingers didn't stop moving, liking each of their tweets one by one. I also set our photo as my phone's wallpaper. We arrived at Cake Avenue. The rich aroma of coconut macaroons wafted through the air. Just as I was about to rush into the crowd to queue for Ms. Bryn, she held me back. We saw the tall and burly Wesley already standing at the end of the queue, turning back to flash us a big grin. Bryn likes coconut macaroons, Eileen likes green pea jelly, and Theo likes pineapple tarts. I remember it all, leave it to me. It started to snow. Suddenly, snowflakes began to fall from the sky. I looked up, and an umbrella opened above my head. Theo had bought 4 umbrellas. I stared in awe at the heavy snowfall, watching it cover all the dark traces in the world. I whispered softly, "Mom, are you a magician?" This city had never seen snow before. But today, it was blanketed in a flurry of snowflakes. I saw Mabel in my dream. In the pouring rain, she stood alone, far, far away from me. But in the next moment, an umbrella opened above her head, shielding her from the torrential downpour. It was a familiar umbrella, Ms. Bryn's umbrella. She loved it and would use it every time it rained. But later she said she had lost that umbrella, and I never saw it again. I asked, "Mom, have you come to see me?" She looked at me and smiled. As gentle as she used to be. She said, "Eileen, you have a home now." I said, "Are you willing to acknowledge me now?" She just smiled, then brought her thumb and index finger together, gently shaking them. A wind chime rang. "Mummy needs to hide now," she said. "Will you come find me again in a few decades?" "But what if I miss you?" "I'm always here," she said. "I'm under this umbrella, secretly living in your heart, so I can be part of your home too." "Are you in my heart?" "Yes," she said proudly. "Mummy is a magician, you know." I woke up from my dream. I was leaning on Ms. Bryn's shoulder, holding her hand. We had both fallen asleep and almost simultaneously opened our eyes. Wesley seemed a bit nervous. "What's wrong? Did my driving wake you up?" Theo skillfully handed us 2 bottles of water. "No," I shook my head, "I just had a dream." Ms. Bryn raised an eyebrow, "Me too." The car came to a stop. That familiar little mound was within reach. "Go on," Ms. Bryn stroked my face, "call us over when you're done talking." I asked, "Mom, have you ever held an umbrella for someone else?" She paused for a moment, then smiled, "Perhaps I have." I didn't ask any further. Walking alone to Mabel Green's grave, I wiped the photo on the tombstone. I never dared to talk to her before. Because no one knew I was her daughter. She didn't want me to be her daughter either. I listened to her and only dared to look at her like this. So this is the first thing I've said to her in over a decade. I said, "Mom, this time I've brought my family to see you." A gentle breeze passed by, and the young woman smiled tenderly. "I'll be going home with them later," I said. "Oh, and my other mom, Ms. Bryn, is about to get married. I'm going to be a flower girl." I'm so old now, I'm afraid people will laugh at me. Well, actually, I'm not afraid. I'm very happy. My ex-boyfriend is in jail again. He came to ask for my forgiveness last time, saying he didn't mean to say those things, but my brother threw him out. Our family has agreed to go on holiday once a year. This time we're going to Tahiti, we've already got our visas. I plan to go diving to see if I can find any pearl oysters. If I do, we'll be rich. With Light Limited is doing well too. You don't know about it, do you? With Light Limited is my company. I have a partner, she's a very good friend of mine, her name is Nina Grant. I stood up, brushed the dirt off my clothes, then leaned down gently and closed my eyes. I've closed my eyes, Mum, I said chokingly. Now you can hide in my heart. This way, decades later, I'll be able to find you. And bring you home.